Speak these 4 sacred words every night. God will reveal his secret message to you. Did you know there exists a millennial technique so powerful it can change the course of your life in just 30 days? Ancient spiritual masters kept this secret for centuries, and today you're going to discover it. If you stay until the end of this video, you'll learn the 4 sacred words that have transformed millions of lives. But attention, they only work if you pronounce them in the exact way I'm going to teach you. These are not common words, not a traditional mantra. It's something much deeper and more revolutionary. When the shadows of night envelop the world and everything is immersed in profound silence, certain questions emerge gently from the most intimate part of our being. How many times in existence do we walk without distinguishing the correct path? We long to hear answers, but they don't arrive. We cry out into the void, but no voice responds. Why do we find ourselves alone during the most challenging moments of our lives? Does the Creator truly remain silent in those instants? Or is it that we have forgotten how to interpret his messages? Is God really distant from us? Or has he always remained close? Only we've lost the ability to perceive him? To discover this truth, you need only one experience: to pronounce 4 simple words before surrendering to nightly rest. What are these 4 sacred words? Do they constitute a special mantra? Should they be spoken in some ancient sacred language? The answer will surprise you. They are so simple that anyone can pronounce them, but the intention and feeling that accompanies them possesses the power to open the most hidden doors of existence. This moment marks the beginning of your spiritual transformation. This is where your inner silence leads you toward a deeper connection with the divine. But can life truly be transformed with just 4 words? Can something so apparently simple generate such a profound miracle? Or is this merely a beautiful poetic metaphor? The answer will reveal itself only when we begin to approach the truth. Dear friends, your presence at this moment is not a coincidence of fate. Perhaps life has guided you here so you can discover something that remained hidden from you until now. We invite you to walk with us on this journey of self-discovery. This is not simply another video. It's a journey inward that brings you closer to your true essence. If you remain connected with your mind, heart, and soul, you'll be able to receive answers to the countless questions that existence has posed before you. If this experience touches the deepest fibers of your being, then embrace it in your own life and share it with others through your words and genuine sincerity. The divine simplicity of communication. So, is it true that no special language or complex technique is required to dialogue with God? Yes, it's completely true. The Creator simply seeks a sincere heart that is prepared to listen attentively. So, why do we continue losing ourselves in life? Why do we collapse under the overwhelming weight of our sorrows? Could it be that God is always showing us the way, but we fail to understand his particular language? Another fundamental question arises. Is God's language different from ours? Indeed, it is. God communicates through silence, through unconditional love, through infinite compassion. But what do? We remain trapped in deafening noise. We drown in the chaos of our suffering. And in doing so, we fail to hear the gentle call of the Most High. What is the solution then? When you go to rest at night, leave everything aside and pronounce only these 4 sacred words. Oh God, show me the way. Perhaps you wonder, is this truly enough? Yes, absolutely. If you pronounce these 4 words with complete faith, total surrender, and profound inner stillness, then they can unlock the secret map of life. But this is only possible if these words don't come from mechanical habit or empty repetition, but from the most intimate depths of your heart. If this message is resonating with you, don't forget to subscribe to the Divine Karma Path channel and activate the bell to receive more spiritual teachings that will transform your life. The art of recognizing divine answers. Here another crucial question arises. What happens if someone pronounces these 4 sacred words and still doesn't perceive any path? Does this mean God hasn't responded to their call? Definitely not. Sometimes God's answer is silent as a gentle breeze. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a person who appears at the exact moment. Other times it manifests as an inspiring thought that arises from nowhere. Therefore, should we learn to recognize the Creator's answers? Of course we should. This is the first secret of the spiritual path. God always responds to our pleas. But learning to recognize His answer is a subtle and interior art that requires practice and patience. Can this art be learned? Absolutely. When you pronounce these 4 sacred words with sincerity each night, your inner vision gradually begins to awaken. And then you start to perceive what you couldn't see before. This is not supernatural magic. It's a natural unfolding of the soul's journey. It's not something external you must search for. It's profoundly internal, something that already resides within you. To delve deeper into this transformative experience, we must descend into the depths of silence, because that's where God's first answer begins to emerge with clarity. When you begin to truly love silence, God begins to speak from within you. The transformative power of silence. But can we truly love silence? Or do we only feel safe in the company of constant words? Why do we fear silence? Is there something hidden in silence from which we are fleeing? Or does silence reveal the truth we've always feared facing? If silence frightens you, do you also fear God? Because the path to God passes through silence. Whoever flees from silence distances themselves from the Creator. Have you ever asked yourself, do I truly desire God? Or am I simply seeking the comfort of beautiful empty words? Do I desire God's path? Or am I only seeking temporary peace? If you truly want to find God, you must first make friends with sacred silence. But here another fundamental question arises. How do we connect with silence? Can we find it at the peak of a mountain, in the depths of formal meditation? Not necessarily. Silence already resides within us. We've simply forgotten how to see it and access it. Do we need to practice to hear God's voice? Yes, we must practice, but not through complicated words. It's the practice of conscious silence. When you pronounce, "Oh God, show me the way" each night, you don't need to do anything more. Simply enter into the silence that unfolds within you after those 4 sacred words. The confrontation with our interior. But is it easy to enter into that silence? No, it's not. Because as soon as you do, all the unheard voices within you begin to surface. All the pain and sadness you've repressed for years suddenly rise like waves. Will you flee at that crucial moment? Or will you listen to your pain with love and compassion? Is God's path really that difficult? No, the path itself is not difficult. The difficulty lies in our own mental conditioning. We are conditioned to escape from ourselves. We are addicted to constant noise. We have ingrained habit of fleeing from our true being. So, will we hear God's answer only when we stop running?
Exactly.
When you stop fleeing from yourself and begin to lovingly listen to each inner voice, God's answer slowly and gently enters your heart like a serene river. But another question arises. When God responds, will that answer be clear and evident? Will it be in audible words? Perhaps not always. Frequently, God responds without words. Sometimes the situation mysteriously changes. Sometimes an internal knot unties itself. Other times, a tranquil simplicity enters your life. To hear God's answer, you don't need elaborate words. You need genuine compassion. Can compassion be cultivated? Of course. When you pronounce the 4 sacred words with a sincere heart each night and begin to love silence, compassion naturally begins to arise within you. You start to hear the silence in which God's presence constantly pulsates. Patience in divine listening. Why do we frequently feel that God isn't listening to us? Perhaps because we lack the necessary patience to truly listen to Him. We long for immediate answers, yet we fear the silence that contains them. And now comes the crucial question. When God responds, does life change immediately in a radical way? Not necessarily. Life changes gradually, like the sun that rises slowly each dawn, like flowers that bloom gently, like love that deepens with time. God's answer also unfolds slowly, sometimes in the form of an inspiring thought, sometimes through a significant experience, other times through an unexpected tender glance. When you pronounce those 4 words each night and enter into sacred silence, one day you'll feel that an invisible guide has entered your life. And then you'll begin to see what was once invisible to your eyes. The transformation of life's questions. That's the next step of this extraordinary journey, understanding how God's language works and how His answer manifests gently in our lives. Because when answers arrive through silence, life's questions begin to transform themselves. But is it really that simple to change life's profound questions? Can 4 words truly alter the questions that have weighed on us for years? Is such transformation possible? The answer is a resounding yes. But this process begins from within, not from without. Does this mean that the solution to life's greatest challenges resides within ourselves? Indeed. We spend our entire existence searching for external solutions, yet God's path teaches us that the true solution is always within us. So, should we turn inward instead of fighting external circumstances?
Precisely.
But here lies another crucial question. Is it easy to look inward? No, it's not. Looking inward means facing all our fears, our imperfections, and our unrealized desires. Are we prepared for that? Frequently, we are not. So, is God's path only for the brave? Not necessarily. God's path is for the sincere, for those who have stopped running and are now prepared to see themselves completely. Honesty as the divine key. Can we truly see ourselves in their totality? Not always. We tend to favor only the parts we like and ignore the rest. Is this why we fail to see God's answers clearly?
Exactly.
When we flee from truth, God's answer also seems incomplete. Only when we embrace every feeling, every fear, and every desire with love does God's answer become crystalline. Does God ask anything specific from us? No, He actually doesn't ask for anything material. He only asks for total honesty. He desires that we come to Him with truthfulness. False faith, feigned devotion, these serve no purpose. He desires only a sincere and transparent heart. So, is pronouncing the 4 sacred words merely the beginning? Yes, absolutely. After those 4 words, the silence that follows becomes the true spiritual practice. When you dwell in that silence, God gradually begins to communicate in your life in extraordinary ways. Does God ever speak in real, audible words? Yes, sometimes. Through a stranger, through a book, through a simple phrase. God occasionally responds in words, but more frequently, His answers arrive as profound feelings, silent inspirations. The development of spiritual sensitivity. Therefore, must we become sensitive to understand His particular language? Yes, definitely. When you pronounce those 4 words each night and enter into silence, your sensitivity naturally deepens. You begin to notice God's signs in your daily life. Can life's important decisions also be guided through this sacred silence? Of course. When you're in continuous inner dialogue with God, you need very little else. Your own heart begins to guide you with wisdom. But can the heart deceive us? Yes, it can. When it's clouded by lust, greed, or pride, its voice is not God's voice. But when the heart is calm, simple, and loving, it becomes a sacred temple for God. Is it difficult to purify the heart? Yes, it can be challenging, but it's not impossible. When you pronounce those 4 words each night and descend into complete honesty, the impurities of the heart gradually begin to dissolve like salt in water. So, can all this transformation begin with just 4 words and lead to profound life change? Yes, without a doubt. The 4 words open the door. Entering inside, going into silence, and learning God's language. This is the true practice of spiritual life. The language of the soul. Now, as we enter the deepest layer of this practice, we'll begin to understand how, when changes begin to occur within us, God starts to interact directly with our soul. Because when life is transformed into silence, God begins to speak to the soul directly. But is this easy? Can we truly understand the soul's language? Or are we merely entangled in empty external words? The soul's language is spoken in the most intimate layers of our being. It emerges when noise ends, when the mind quiets, and when desires settle. Only then can we hear the gentle voice of the soul. But is that voice always clear and evident? Not always. The soul speaks very softly, like a river flowing over smooth stones. To hear it, we must become deeply sensitive internally. Can we awaken that inner sensitivity? Of course. When each night you pronounce these 4 simple words, "Oh God, show me the way," and then rest in silence with complete trust, your inner sensitivity gradually begins to awaken like a flower at dawn. And then, does the soul's voice become distinct from the world's noise?
Exactly.
The outer world is fast, noisy, and restless. The soul's realm is slow, peaceful, and patient. The outer world responds immediately, but the soul speaks beyond the boundaries of time. The soul's guidance in daily life. Can the soul's answers guide our practical life? Definitely. The soul's voice is always simple, yet it touches profound truths. When you begin to communicate with the soul, you start to recognize which paths to take and which to avoid. Is it possible for each person to communicate with their soul? Yes, absolutely. The soul doesn't belong to a chosen few. The soul dwells in every human heart. But the question is, are we truly prepared to hear our soul's voice? Have we created sufficient inner stillness? If that stillness is absent, does the soul's voice drown? Yes, precisely. When the mind is constantly noisy, the soul's voice goes unnoticed. Then we ask again and again why God doesn't respond. But the truth is the answers are already there. We simply fail to hear them. Is it necessary to completely stop the mind to hear the soul's voice? Not necessarily. We don't have to stop the mind completely. We only need to observe it in a state of inner peace. We shouldn't try to suppress the mind. We must accept it lovingly. Just as clouds pass through the sky without altering it, we must allow our thoughts to come and go without clinging to them. Then gradually the soul's voice becomes clearer and more distinctive. The truth of the soul versus the mind. Is the soul's voice always truthful? Yes, without exception. The soul never deceives. But sometimes we confuse the mind's voice with the soul's voice. That's why silence is essential, to be able to distinguish between the mind's cunning and the soul's truth. Can there be a difference between the mind's voice and the soul's voice? Of course. The mind's voice is restless, impulsive, and full of calculations about gain and loss. The soul's voice, on the other hand, is calm, loving, and free from fear. Once you begin to communicate with the soul, your life's direction becomes clearer. But do the soul's answers always lead to immediate happiness? Not necessarily. Sometimes the soul leads us through difficult paths. However, these very paths bring us closer to God. Should we fear those difficult paths? No, definitely not. Because the soul will never lead us towards something that will destroy us. Every direction it gives brings us closer to complete wholeness. So, is listening to the soul's voice life's greatest blessing? Yes, undoubtedly. When a person begins to hear the soul's voice, they experience extraordinary inner freedom. No struggle in life can then completely defeat them. The divine presence in the heart. In the next stage of this extraordinary journey, when communication with the soul becomes stable, we begin to see how God Himself begins to appear in the heart, how His love becomes the very center of our existence. Because when the soul is stable, God descends into the heart. But is this divine descent only a fleeting experience? Is it merely a momentary motion? No, not at all. When God enters the heart, He becomes not just an experience, but the very foundation of life. Does God's presence in the heart eliminate all sadness from life? Not necessarily. Sadness still arrives, but it no longer breaks us as it once did. God's love takes root within, and even sadness begins to offer profound support. Is it possible that sadness itself becomes a blessing? Yes, when God dwells in the heart, a person begins to see sadness with love. Then sadness teaches instead of destroying. Sadness transforms into a message, not a punishment. Does such a person begin to love others? Definitely. When God establishes Himself in the heart, the boundaries of self dissolve. That person sees God himself in everyone because that divine presence is now alive within them. So, does this love belong to a single person? No, this love is not limited to any particular person, relationship, or group. It begins to flow outward. It includes even those who have hurt us, those who have failed to understand us. Universal love and its tests. Is this type of love possible for ordinary people? Yes, it's possible. Although this love may seem gentle, it's not weak. It awakens in those who have journeyed deep within, who have sincerely asked God for guidance each night, and who have embraced the practice of silence. Is there a test for this true love? Yes, there is. Life constantly places us in situations that test the truth of our love. When others reject your love, when you're misunderstood, if your love remains firm through all this, then it's true love. So, is God's presence in the heart only a personal experience? No, it's not. When God enters someone's heart, their life becomes a light for others. They begin to guide others through their silence, through their way of being, and through their radiating love. Does such a person try to do something extraordinary? Not necessarily. They simply live in silence, live in truth, and see with love. Their very presence becomes a message for others. Is this the final stage of the spiritual journey? No. This journey never truly ends. When God enters the heart, life opens a new door, where love and silence merge into profound unity. However, the journey continues because love knows no boundaries and silence has no limiting walls. The awakening of consciousness. Do new experiences emerge after reaching this state? Yes, definitely. Life then guides you toward realms that once existed only in ancient sacred texts. God begins to speak through circumstances, people, and events. These become his direct messages. Does each moment begin to reveal God's presence? Yes, when God dwells in the heart, you begin to notice even the smallest moments. The ordinary begins to feel extraordinary. Each breath becomes a living prayer. In this next phase of the journey, as life itself becomes a mirror of the divine, how do we enter our inner consciousness? How is the distance between us and God erased? When life becomes a mirror of God, the door to consciousness opens effortlessly. But does it open because we fully understand God? Not necessarily. The door to consciousness opens naturally. When one sees life as a reflection of the divine, that sacred door slowly opens, not by force, but by surrender. It unfolds gently. Is this opening the result of spiritual practice? Yes, when one converses with God, pronounces a few sincere words each night, enters deep silence, listens to the soul's voice, and cultivates love in daily life, then this door begins to open naturally. The signs of spiritual awakening. Is there a sign that consciousness has opened? Yes, there is. The world seems the same externally, but your vision transforms completely. You realize that what you see is merely the surface. Reality is much deeper and vaster. Is this depth available to everyone? Yes, God withholds nothing. Whoever enters within honestly and embraces truth in their life finds that this door opens by itself. Is the awakening of consciousness a mysterious event? Yes, but it's not strange. It's both mysterious and simple, as natural as dawn, yet it only happens when both mind and soul are immersed in divine love. Does life transform after this awakening? Yes, definitely. Once consciousness awakens, God's presence becomes a living experience. A temple, a scripture, or even words are no longer needed to find him. God is felt in every breath, in every heartbeat. Does this experience ever fade? No. When consciousness is fully awake, it's no longer a fleeting moment. It becomes the very foundation of life. Sadness may come, but it no longer disturbs inner peace. Challenges may arise, but they cannot alter inner stillness. The transformation of ego and meditation. Does this state come from special knowledge? No, it doesn't come from external learning. It arises from deep inner meditation. It's born not from books, but from direct personal experience. Does the awakening of consciousness distance a person from others? No, on the contrary. Instead, it brings greater ease and connection. One no longer feels separated from anyone. A new understanding of meditation blossoms. After the awakening of consciousness, does the ego dissolve completely? Yes, the ego begins to dissolve gradually. The need to prove oneself fades. One begins to live in love, in stillness, in simplicity. In this state, is meditation no longer necessary? No, on the contrary. Meditation becomes life itself. It's no longer confined to specific hours. Every moment becomes meditation. There's no longer division between life and meditation. Does love toward God deepen after this awakening? Yes, tremendously. God is no longer just a word or thought. God becomes the very heartbeat. Every moment begins to unfold in the divine lap. Union with the divine. In the next stage of this journey, one begins to witness how all boundaries between God and life dissolve after the awakening of consciousness. One begins to experience oneself within God. Because when consciousness is awake, the division between the divine and life begins to fade. But is this union simple? Is it merely a mental state? No, it's not imagination. It's a living truth, one that reveals itself only in profound silence. Is this state accessible to everyone? Yes, it's not the privilege of a chosen few. It's available to all those who sincerely invoke God, pronounce 4 honest words each night, sit in silence, live in love, and journey inward with complete honesty. Are these boundaries created by the mind? Yes, exactly. Our fears, ego, and assumptions give rise to these invisible walls. God is always near, but the mind constructs illusory barriers. Can these walls be broken? Yes, when we immerse ourselves in love, in truth, and in silence, the walls slowly crumble. These walls are only habits of the conditioned mind, and all we need is to recognize them for what they truly are. Is there any true separation between God and life? No, there isn't. Separation is merely an illusion created by limited perception. God and life are always one. When consciousness awakens completely, even this illusion dissolves like mist in the sun. Does one then become one with God? Yes, precisely. Life is no longer experienced only through the body or a limited mind. God is lived with every breath. God is no longer a distant external force. He is present in every heartbeat. The eternity of divine union. Is this union eternal? Yes, once the state is reached, it's not momentary. It becomes the new normal of existence. God is now equally present in all experiences, joy and sadness, ease and difficulty. Does one become inwardly free in this state? Yes, completely. Only the body remains limited by physical laws. The mind and soul begin to fly in unlimited skies. One is no longer chained to thoughts, fears, or ego. Life is lived in total freedom. Is any special effort needed in this state? No, striving ends. Meditation becomes life itself. Every moment becomes an act of meditation. Life and meditation merge as one reality. Does the search for identity remain in this state? No, there's no longer need for any limited identity. One knows they are not just a name, a body, or a personal story. One realizes they are the same consciousness that always was and always will be. Does fear then disappear? Yes, even the fear of death vanishes completely. One understands that life and death are only different expressions of the same eternal existence. Eternal consciousness is God Himself. Does such a person become a guiding light for others? Yes, united with silence, immersed in love, they become a beacon without any effort. They no longer give elaborate sermons. Now they teach only through their radiant presence. Has life become simple and effortless in this state? Yes, there's no more acting, no more artificial complexity. Life now flows with natural ease, like a river that flows by itself, like a flower that blooms by itself, like the wind that moves without being directed by anyone. Transcendence while living in the world. Now, Let's explore the deepest layers of this extraordinary state. What happens when a person becomes completely one with life and the divine? Even while living in the world, how does such a being transcend completely? How is their vision anchored in eternal truth? Because when life and God become one, even while dwelling in the world, the individual no longer belongs to it. But is this truly possible? Can someone transcend the world while still living within it? Is this only a state reserved for renunciants? No, this can be the state of any individual who, from within, is profoundly fused in God. Does transcending the world mean withdrawing from it? No, it means being completely present in duties, in relationships, in daily life. And yet, inwardly, not being bound by any of it. Is this state difficult? Yes, it is. But it's not impossible. This state arises when a person seeks divine guidance each night, descends into profound silence, listens to the soul's voice, and lives as if life itself were God's mirror. Is inner freedom while living in the world the highest form of spiritual practice? Yes, when a person remains active in their family, their work, their relationships, yet inwardly remains as a pure witness. Then, even while living in the world, they go beyond it. Does this witness state arrive effortlessly? No. It arrives when a person begins to observe every rise and fall of the mind with unconditional love. When they look at every thought and feeling without escaping, without suppressing, without trying to cling to it. Does this witness state make one emotionally cold or detached? No, on the contrary. Witnessing makes a person more gentle, more loving. Now they live each moment deeply, yet they're never stuck in any moment. The final dissolution of the ego. In this state, does the ego dissolve completely? Yes. Now there's no need to prove anything to anyone. There's no attachment to any limited identity. They simply flow, as the wind flows, as rivers flow without resistance. In this state, does one begin to see glimpses of God, even in the smallest things? Yes, they see God in a flower, in a human face, even in an ordinary event. They hear the whisper of the divine everywhere. In this state, can one face both joy and sadness with equal calm? Yes, they remain in the same peace during happiness and rest in the same stillness during sadness. Now life's ups and downs don't shake them from within. Does this state come from a particular spiritual practice? No, this state arises when life itself becomes the spiritual practice. When every breath, every action, every relationship becomes a living prayer. Then this state arises naturally. In this state, can a person teach without uttering a single word? Yes. Now their silence carries transformative power. Their love has oceanic depth. Their actions reflect pure sincerity. They teach simply by being who they authentically are. Friendship with death and divine play. In this state, does even the fear of death disappear? Yes, now death feels like nothing more than a natural transition. They know the body will perish, but what resides within will remain forever. Now, even death becomes a friend. In this state, does each incident, each circumstance appear as divine play? Yes, now they see that everything is Lila, a divine game held in God's hands. They participate in this cosmic play, yet remain inwardly free. And in the next depth of this extraordinary journey, we'll explore how silence and love, when rooted in transcendence, transform all of life into pure divine joy. Divine joy as a natural state. When silence and love interweave in perfect harmony, all existence becomes a symphony of divine joy. This is not temporary happiness that depends on external circumstances. It's a joy that springs from the depths of being, a joy that remains intact no matter what happens in the outer world. How does this divine joy manifest in daily life? It manifests as an inner smile that never fades, as a peace that transcends all understanding, as a love that knows no conditions or limitations. The person who has reached this state doesn't seek happiness because they already are happiness. They don't seek love because they already are love. They don't seek God because they already are one with God. Is this state the end of the spiritual path? No, because in divine life, there is no end. Each moment opens new dimensions of love, new depths of silence, new expressions of joy. The journey continues eternally, but now it's a journey of pure celebration. Dear friends of the soul, we have traveled together an extraordinary journey through the deepest dimensions of the human being. We have explored how 4 simple words can open the gates of heaven on earth. Oh God, show me the way. These are not just empty words spoken mechanically. They are sacred keys that, when used with total sincerity, unshakable faith, and pure love, can completely transform the course of your existence. The path we have described is not just spiritual theory. It's a practical invitation to a life of constant divine connection. It's an invitation to discover that heaven is not somewhere far away after death, but right here, in this moment, within your own heart. Remember that each night, when you prepare for rest, you have a sacred opportunity, an opportunity to connect with the infinite source of love, wisdom, and guidance that has always been waiting patiently for you. Don't underestimate the power of simplicity. The deepest paths to spiritual transformation are often the simplest. 4 words spoken with absolute sincerity can do more for your spiritual evolution than years of complicated practices performed without heart. This is my crucial message for you. Begin this very night. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't postpone until you feel more prepared. Preparation comes through practice, not before it. Pronounce these 4 sacred words, "Oh God, show me the way," and then remain in silence. Listen not only with your ears, but with every fiber of your being. The answers will come, perhaps not in the way you expect, but they will come. And remember to share this wisdom with those you love. Spiritual light multiplies when shared. It doesn't divide. By helping others find their way to divine connection, you strengthen your own connection. May divine peace fill your heart, may infinite love guide your steps, and may eternal wisdom illuminate your path. May each dawn bring you new revelations, and may each nightfall bring you closer to union with your true divine essence. The journey to God is not a journey outward, but a journey inward. It's not a journey into the future, but into the eternal now. And it's not a journey you make alone, but a journey you make in the company of the infinite love that has never abandoned you. Begin tonight. Your soul is waiting for you. Thank you, from the depths of my heart, for not just listening to these words, but for feeling the inner voice that awakens within you. You haven't simply watched a video. You've tried to gently open that inner silent door, the door where God waits patiently for you. Today you gave your time, listened attentively, reflected deeply. For this, I bow before your heart. Your love, your faith, and your companionship are the forces that guide us on this true path. I pray to the divine that your life be filled with peace, love, and infinite blessings. May you always smile, may silence always reside within you, and may you continuously feel God's closeness in every moment of your existence. If this video has touched your heart, please share it with your loved ones, so this message can reach other hearts thirsting for spiritual truth.